Hi there, I am Monica Burns, and welcome to the new Easy EdTech podcast episode. As a former New York City public school teacher and current EdTech consultant, I started this podcast in 2019 to share my favorite classroom tech integration tips and stories from my experiences. Each episode offers practical ideas for you to try, share, or save for later. Be sure to check out classtechtips.com/podcast for today's show notes and resources. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or another favorite podcast app, you'll find the show notes link in the description too. This episode is sponsored by my new free ebook on ChatGPT. It's called 60 Plus Must-Try ChatGPT Prompts for Teachers, and it's full of ideas that will save you oodles of time. To grab the free ebook, go to classtechtips.com/ChatGPT book. That's my website, classtechtips.com, and add a /ChatGPT book. You can also find the link in the description of this episode or by tapping on the free stuff button on my website, classtechtips.com. This week's episode is titled 10 Unexpected Prompts to Try in ChatGPT. Have you tried out ChatGPT yet? It's no surprise that the buzz around this artificial intelligence chatbot tool isn't going away. I've played around with it for a few months now, and I feel like I learn something new almost every day. In today's episode, I have 10 prompts for teachers you can use to save time this school year and maybe even get your wheels spinning about some new things you want to try. Now, I use the title Unexpected for this podcast episode on purpose. I've picked out 10 for you that really made me think differently about what's even possible with using generative AI or this chatbot tool. Now, if you've been poking around the blog or listening into the podcast, then you know this is a topic I've mentioned a few times over this year. I had a really great conversation with fellow Apple Distinguished Educator Richard Perry a few weeks ago about using chatbots in the classroom. I shared some time-saving prompts at the very start of this year, and I even launched a membership, AI for Educators, where starting on May 1st, so it'll be a little bit after this, or right before, I should say, this episode goes live, I'm sharing new updates and things that I'm really excited about in AI and education that are designed for people that want to go a little bit deeper. You know, here on the podcast, we've been talking about artificial intelligence a little bit, but we also have episodes coming up this spring that focus on SEL, on student reflections, on virtual field trips, and all other sorts of things around EdTech. So if that's something you're interested in, you are really just pumped up about this topic, you've listened to some of my other content around chatbots and generative AI, then feel free to reach out and I can give you some more info on that new AI for Educators membership. I actually had someone email just last week to sign up a whole group of their educators. So just wanted to mention that for those of you who are really excited about AI or still just kind of, dipping your toes in the water a little bit if you're interested here. So as we're talking today about these unexpected prompts, a couple of things for you to consider. These prompts are ones that can get your wheels spinning as you think about how you might use ChatGPT to accelerate your workflow this school year. You can plug in all sorts of information and customize the prompts that I'll share with you in today's episode. Now, if you've spent any time in ChatGPT or Bard or any of the new ones coming on the scene, you know that it's not perfect. It can be bogged down or kind of slow during peak hours. It's not even the only type of AI out there to the general public. You might have played with Jasper or DALL-E or other examples of things that are available. But one term you may want to add to your artificial intelligence vocabulary, it has to do with today's episode, is prompt engineering. It's a term that's popped up in a few different places. I know there was a great article from Axios earlier this year that talked about how it might even be a job title for people in the future. But one of the issues with ChatGPT is knowing what to ask. And this is where prompt engineering or crafting great questions or prompts that you give ChatGPT comes into play. So, as you are refining the prompts that I'm going to share in today's episode, you want to make sure that you keep a couple things in mind. So, you might change some of these up so that it goes with a certain tone, like adding an adjective such as friendly or professional to your prompt to make the response have a particular tone. Or you might add something that goes along with the context. So, if you're creating something for students, for families, for colleagues, you can include your audience in that prompt that you give. And then, of course, the specificity. If your first response gives you, if your first prompt gives you a response that's really general, you might follow it up with a condition that makes it more specific, like in bullet points or in shorter sentences or with simpler vocabulary. So let's jump into this list of 10 unexpected prompts. You, of course, can find all of these in the show notes for today's episode, and I'll give you some examples along the way of a few things that I've done. One unexpected way to use this tool is to rewrite emails. If you're writing an email and you're totally stuck, you can paste it into ChatGPT and say, rewrite this email so it is more blank, right? Give your adjective, concise, professional, funnier, right? Whatever it might be. Now, if you've played with that one, another unexpected way around emails is to say, rewrite my email, but reorganize it so it uses bullet points to share key points instead of paragraphs. So even if you've tried this out with emails before, one kind of unexpected way that I've been playing with recently is having it reorganize the text in email. Now, for me, this is something that I'm excited about because if you're writing emails and you're like, I don't think anyone's reading this, or this is too long, or I can tell I'm being too wordy, this is a great way to get your key points to jump out off the page so that whoever's reading your email knows what you want to do. Our number 2 on the list is to write a song. Now, you might do something where you write a song to the tune of, and then you put in the song that teaches students about the topic. And you might even add something like grade level to go along with it. So I've done this a few different times. I've done it with really, really popular or well-known songs like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So I've said, write a song to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star that teaches about coral reefs, right? And then it will do a song that you can sing along. You already know the tune, but feel free to push it a little bit further. You might do something that goes with a Disney song, right? Or a song that you've shared a whole bunch with a group of students or that's pretty popular. You do want to be mindful of that this technology is still pulling from the past a little bit. So you don't want to say like to the tune of a brand new Taylor Swift song. You want it to be something that's been out and about for a couple years. That way it's pulling from data that it knows exactly what song you're talking about. You might do a write a song to teach students about anything, or even as a fun way to introduce a new idea or concept to them. Number 3 on our unexpected prompts is to create a riddle or saying to help me remember a topic. So I did this the other day where I said, create a riddle that helps me remember the planets. And so it gave me a couple different things. It said, my very eccentric mom just served us noodles planetarily. And then it said, Mercury's my, Venus very, Earth's eccentric. I won't go through the whole thing, but it also put these, I didn't even say it, in the order of the planets from the closest to the sun out. And it even included Pluto in there too. So a lot that you can do there. Creating a riddle or funny saying is a prompt that you might use, and you would add in that to help me remember, and then the topic. Number 4 is one that I shared at the ASCD conference in Denver about a month ago. I don't know if you saw any of my posts after the event, but it was a packed house. There's almost, 200 or so people in there. I tried to count like with the chairs, but there were people standing and stuff too. So I would say about 200 people. They closed the doors 15 minutes early just because there was no more room for anyone. So we started early. I think that's the first time in a long time that's happened to me. And this unexpected prompt that I shared was super popular. I shared, write a scene featuring the characters of whatever show you want, where they talk about whatever topic you want. And by the end, everyone understands whatever the goal is. So that's one that you might use if you want to introduce a topic or idea with a little bit of a creative spin. I've shared a couple examples with groups, and including the one at ASC, the group at ASCD. So I did, with the cast of Friends, write a scene featuring the characters of the show Friends, where they talk about the Boston Tea Party. And by the end, everyone understands what happens. So you can really play with those. And Friends is just an example. You'd want to choose a show that resonates with your group, or maybe characters in a movie or from a book, right? You could really take a spin on that, but it's a fun way to introduce a concept, and it definitely an unexpected one. When I came across it, I thought this is not something that I think will work, and it totally worked really well. So that's something that you might want to do. Another unexpected prompt that I've been playing with that I think works really well for giving kids an opportunity to take on the perspective or see the perspective of an event from someone's role, right, is to write a letter from the perspective of whoever it is, their role, who experienced whatever the event is. So I tried this not that long ago with write a letter from the perspective of someone who attended the Seneca Falls convention, right, who experienced the conversations at the event. And so it was great to do this as a quick letter because it wrote it as if the person was really there, almost like a primary source document, if you will. And this is something you might share with a group at the beginning of a lesson, at the end to kind of wrap up or put a bow on something you're talking about. And you might even use this with students to have them like guess, what type of person do you think I put in here? Like who, the different roles that you might really play around with here, because we know people have different perspectives based on their experiences at an event. So that's number 5, write a letter from the perspective of. Now, the next few I have for you, the next 2 are more around kind of unexpected ways to use a tool that usually pops out or responds in a paragraph. Instead of the default, right, where it might give you a few sentence answers, you can tell ChatGPT to give you a response in a particular format. And we did that already, right? Like in the format of a song or in the format of a scene. You might ask ChatGPT to create a table that, and then you give it the directions on what you want the table to have. So you can say, create a table that lists fruits in one column and vegetables in another column. Or you might say, create a table that gives me 4 key points on a topic and then a discussion question that goes along with each of them. So creating a table is a great organizational structure that you can prompt ChatGPT to do for you. I'm a big tables person. If you or someone in your life loves Google Sheets, you definitely want to try out the table option here, or just let them know that that's something you can do. So far on our list of 10, we have rewrite my email or reorganize it, write a song to the tune of, create a riddle to help me remember, write a scene where characters talk about something, write a letter from the perspective of someone, and then create a table. The next one is to take some content you already have and summarize it into bullet points. So you might say, summarize the following into bullet points and then paste in a page of text. This is great for you if you are reading through some professional text and you want to get a quick summary. This is great if you want to have some key points pulled out for you for a discussion with students or colleagues. So summarizing a passage into bullet points, that's something that you might try in many different contexts. Another that I think is a great one when you are in a pinch or you are working with a student that has very specific interests is to recommend books for a student who likes blank. So if you have a student who is maybe a hesitant reader or can never really find something they want to stick with, you might say, okay, what is one book that you have loved in the past? They tell you that, and then you type into ChatGPT, recommend books for a student who likes blank, and that book. Or that student might not have a book that they love, but maybe there's a movie, or maybe there's a genre, or something else. And you can get really specific. You can even say, at this instructional reading level, or by this author, or something like that. Get more and more specific. It'll give you something fantastic. So that one is recommend books for a student who likes blank. Now, I love a music playlist. If you joined me for that ChatGPT session that I did on time-saving tips for teachers at the ASCD conference, I moved away from my typical playlist of songs that I play at the start of that conference session. And instead, I made a playlist that had to do with robots. I played Mr. Roboto. I played that Are We Humans or Are We Dancers song. I played a whole bunch of them. And I, thought to myself, okay, I can think of a couple off the top of my head. What I didn't think about until afterwards is that I could have asked ChatGPT for some recommendations. So you might say to ChatGPT, make a playlist of songs that have to do with the theme of blank. And you could even say something with student-friendly songs or kid-friendly songs, and then it will make a playlist for you. You could go into Spotify or Apple Music or any streaming service that you might use, and then make a playlist based off that. So that's a really fun way to get some thematic music and songs to get students excited about a new topic that you are doing. Now, number 10 on the list, which for me was so unexpected when I first was trying out ChatGPT. Again, I thought it was only going to give me answers in paragraphs, maybe bullet points if I asked it to. So number 10 is add emojis to fill in the blank. So you can paste in text. You might put in a list that you have about to share with students. You might even put in an email that you have and ask it to add emojis. Now, emojis are kind of silly, right? I actually did a session last week or the last week of April, depending on when you're listening to this, with a group of Kentucky educators where we talked about silly yet strategic ways to use emojis. And it was a really fun session because, we went beyond just something that might make you laugh or giggle in a text message to really being strategic about pictures and that visual literacy component. So ChatGPT works with emojis. And so number 10 on our list of unexpected prompts is to add emojis to whatever it is that you want ChatGPT to add emojis to. So if you want a bonus tip, I've got an extra one for you. If you're asking ChatGPT to do something like give you ideas for something, try using the word unexpected in your prompt. You might say something like, give me some unexpected ways to introduce biomes to my 5th grade students. And it might give you some silly or things you might just not think of that aren't obvious. So I've tried that a couple times. Give me some unexpected or surprising, and then I will put in the prompt I was planning on using anyhow. So there you have it. Those are the 10 on the list. I will link out to everything so that you have it right here where you are listening to this episode. Just click on that show notes link. Now let's finish up this episode and make this EdTech easy with a few key points. Think about your time-consuming tasks and develop a prompt for that. Keep in mind your tone, context, and specificity. Use unexpected prompts to generate activity ideas and find classroom resources. And try prompts for everyday tasks that you can format, add emojis to, or do something a little bit unexpected. Remember, you can find the show notes and full list of resources from this episode at classtechtips.com/podcast and finding today's episode number 213. That's where you'll also find the link to download a whole bunch of prompts mentioned today as an ebook or even access my ChatGPT webinar replay. This episode is sponsored by my new free ebook on ChatGPT. It's called 60 Plus Must-Try ChatGPT Prompts for Teachers, and it's full of ideas that will save you oodles of time. To grab the free ebook, go to classtechtips.com/ChatGPT book. That's my website, classtechtips.com, and add a /ChatGPT book. You can also find the link in the description of this episode or by tapping on the free stuff button on my website, classtechtips.com. Thanks for joining us for another Tuesday edition of the Easy EdTech podcast. Remember to hit follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite app to have next week's episode ready for you on Tuesday morning. Feel free to share takeaways from this episode with friends or colleagues in a quick email or text, or even on social media. And don't hesitate to tag me at Class Tech Tips if you have any questions.